He's one of the city's leading developers, but Hilton Grusian actually started out as a landscape gardener. Therein, he says, lies part of his success.
Gardeners tend to get things done without going through the bureaucratic process as a reason for things to be fouled up.
The man behind the Cardiff, Warrabrook and Tomago industrial estates, Hilton Grusian, continues to have faith in the hunter, if not perhaps some of the people and bodies running it.
There's a definite need for change in the culture of the bureaucracy. The attitude should be, how do we get things to happen, not how do we refer them back to committees to consider them for a few years and let them die.
Mr Grusian particularly wants to see more effort being put into the Newcastle port, with Sydney expected to become increasingly congested in the run-up to the 2000 Olympics. He says it's time for Newcastle to make its move.
With the huge throughput of coal, if we can match that up with good trading inwards and outwards of goods, this port could serve the East Coast in a much more vibrant way and bring huge job opportunities to the area.
Graham Singleton, NBN News.
Heavy demolition equipment is bringing down the old City Motel to make way for the new Telstra building. Just a block away, the Westpac Bank building awaits its fate. The City Council is about to buy the building for $1 million, knock it down, then pay another $300,000 to set up Westpac in the Frederick Ash building, which will be restored. Rose Cogger is the community representative on the Civic Site Redevelopment Committee.
Total cost will be almost $1.9 million. Council have already borrowed $9 million from the Loan Council, plus interest on that loan. They only have $8 million left in their working capital reserves. Ratepayers are questioning whether at this stage Council should be facilitating the Westpac Bank at ratepayers' expense.
The Westpac building will make way for a plaza which will form a forecourt to a redeveloped civic block. The decision to restore and recycle other old buildings along the block was made on heritage grounds, but now critics claim the Westpac Bank, in more viable condition, is also worth saving. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
Come and say g'day. I'll slip an extra shrimp on the barbie for you.
That's how Hogue sold Australia to the world. Now we're about to tempt them with some traditional fare, and there isn't a shrimp in sight.
So many flavors in Australian food, as I say, like it's people, it's very eclectic, and you will find a lot of Asian, Mediterranean influence. So Australia, it's just a mix of all this flavour.
Jean-Marc Paulet has replaced the Australian drawl with his own dialect, but the French-born Australian says his message will be just as clear. The chief chef at Colbin's Peppers Guest House will be one of 3 Australians who will cook at 3 upmarket Bloomingdale's department stores as part of a promotion on the Pacific.
It's very exciting, really, and it's a great honour to be there, and promoting Australians here at the Valley. So I'm really looking for it. It's a great excitement.
Where the average disposable income of a Bloomingdale's store cardholder is $150,000 a year, they're the sort of marketplaces we want to be talking to in the United States.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Austin injured his foot during the opening half against Perth, and ever since he's been battling to be fit. But intensive physio treatment this week seems to have paid off, giving the all-clear to play.
Yeah, pretty confident. It'll go alright, I think.
Meantime, specialist coaching for the Breakers attacking force this morning. Coach John Cosmina pounded with balls as the Breakers focused on what they failed to do against Perth. The coach has called for a number of extra training sessions in the lead-up to the trip. The side departs for its big away double on Thursday.
I think it'll be tough for us, travelling to Canberra on Friday and then having to back up on Sunday in Wollongong. probably be tough for the side to do, but we have to get a couple of wins. We need them.
The Friday night clash should be the easier battle. Canberra is languishing on the bottom of the table with 3 games for 3 losses, hammered last weekend 3-1 by West Adelaide. City's record is better. They've started the season with 1 win, 1 draw and 1 loss. Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
An independent pricing and regulatory tribunal has recommended the state's public transport contracts, including Newcastle buses, be put to competitive tender. Newcastle buses is going through lean times, making just 25% back on its operating costs. The Public Transport Union says the recommendation to put the Newcastle routes out to tender is having a destabilising effect on the city's 270 public bus drivers.
It is reasonably unstabilising and demoralising for a lot of the members here. We feel that we've been through a lot of reform in the past.
And it seems there's little interest from private bus companies in the Newcastle contract. They claim Newcastle buses would have to show a dramatic improvement in performance before anyone would consider taking on the contract.
With regard to the Newcastle buses, we believe a lot of work would have to be done there before that would be attractive to a private operator.
In a bid to improve its performance, Newcastle buses will introduce a time-based ticketing system in January next year. The state government will make a final decision on whether public transport contracts will be put to tender. Blake Doyle, NBN News. They may look like your average beachgoers, but they're actually plainclothes police officers. They've been put on the beach beat to stop thefts. Last summer there were more than 100 stealings from vehicles in car parks in the Lake Macquarie area. Police say leaving wallets and other possessions in full view is an open invitation for potential thieves, and they're warning owners to keep cars secure.
Our experience shows that if a thief sees one item of value in a car, they may well believe there are other items of value in the car and will break into the car to see what they can find.
The Beach Beat police will also be targeting thieves who operate on the sand. They warn beachgoers to keep their possessions within view.
The preferable option would be if people can maintain a clear sight of where their valuables are to make sure that nobody takes them.
The plainclothes patrol will be on the beach from December until February.
Saying wasn't something decent, I think ice cream stuff.
There's nowhere to go for him. It's Positive Vibes in front of Face the Law now. Jacaranda Kid down the outside. He still can't get out on Lightning Downs. Jacaranda Kid and Positive Vibes come clear. Jacaranda Kid and Positive Vibes. Positive Vibes the inside. Jacaranda Kid the outside. Positive Vibes. Jacaranda Kid.
Oman punters collected 10 to 1 about the winner, the trifecta $119.20. Racing was also at Gosford. Our best, race 7 over 1,200 metres. Golden Days lived up to its name to pay followers $8, $10 and $2.60. The trifecta $329.10.
Federal member for Newcastle Alan Morris repeated calls for a parliamentary inquiry today. The Australian Workers' Union has backed the calls, claiming a parliamentary inquiry will canvass all the issues over BHP's intentions in Newcastle and Australia-wide.
We believe it'll show that BHP isn't struggling as much as what they're trying to make out, that they're investing their money elsewhere overseas, and that's to the detriment of Australia and Australian jobs.
The AWU says it's surprised by the Minister's rejection of the inquiry.
He's been badly briefed by BHP anyhow, and we will be asking to see John Moore and put forward our point of view.
Meanwhile, ACTU President Jenny George will be in Newcastle shortly to tour BHP and meet with AWU officials. The Australian Workers' Union is confident Ms George will take the Newcastle Steelworks issue to the federal government.
The units at Tighes Hill were funded through the Building Better Cities project and provide room for 4 people, with one set up to accommodate a person with a disability. The Hunter Mission has named the units Jumbuna, which means to talk together, and it's hoped they will help young disadvantaged people find their place in society.
The young people coming here will come from supported accommodation services or refuges, and so they're making that next step towards independence.
Those staying at the units will have to pay 25% of their income as rent and will have the support of local youth workers. But while one section of the community is receiving help, another is losing it. The Newcastle iTech Skillshare office in King Street closed its doors today, having lost 75% of its federal government funding. The employment service has been operating in Newcastle since 1977, and chairperson Chris Dodds says its closure is a real loss to the community.
For the local area, there's 2 specific meanings. One is that over 500 unemployed people will no longer be provided with training in information technology, which is what our centre specialised in. And the other meaning is that there are now 7 skilled and trained people in assisting unemployed people who are unemployed themselves.
"35 children were selected from the smaller schools between Aberdeen and Marundai for the special arts and drama camp at the Apple Lodging near Moonan Flat near Scone. Resident children's author Joan Daglish had this advice for the gifted children.
When writers write their stories, the story is alive in their mind when they write it. It goes into the story, into the book, and it stays there.
She quickly became a favourite with the children.
If you get any kind of information or anything, you can make a story out of it.
Other highlights were drama workshops, creative writing and drawing, making the 3-day camp a hit with the children.
I think this has been the best one yet. It's been really good at the camp so far.
A confused message from a 000 caller meant firefighters had little to salvage when they arrived at the Bolton Point house just before 9:30 last night. Thousands of dollars worth of household goods were destroyed, although the family which rented the house escaped. They were alerted by smoke alarms that had been installed by the owner just a couple of months ago.
Could have been worse, but we actually installed 3 fire alarms in July, and I think that's what saved everyone's life.
It's reinforced fire brigade warnings for all homeowners to install smoke alarms. The house was insured, but its contents were not. The cause of the fire is still not known. Meanwhile, the Hunter has become the first region to introduce new procedures for its fire brigades, which aim to improve efficiency at emergencies. To help reduce the burden on the commanding officer, responsibilities will be divided between 4 firefighters at serious blazes or chemical spills.
The loss of life and property and damage to life and property will be reduced dramatically.
The incident control system will be introduced throughout the rest of the state within the next 12 months. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. The head of the Hunter Valley Alliance of Firearm Owners was one of the first to hand in his guns, but it was anything but a surrender.
As soon as I get my cheque for these guns, I'm going to buy legal types of replacement guns because the needs that I have for them are continuing.
He describes the buyback as a $600 million joke on the Australian taxpayers that targets responsible gun owners instead of criminals.
And I'm sad as well because these guns mean a lot to me. I've gone and stalked rabbits with my kids with them. I've had tremendous times helping farmers on their properties with them.
But the response has been more positive at Newcastle Police Station. 150 guns have been handed back in the fortnight before the buyback began. Gun owners are compensated within a couple of weeks of surrendering their weapons.
Every gun counts. Every gun off the street is, I think, will be a lot safer, better in our hands than public.
The amnesty on semi-automatics and pump-action shotguns lasts for 12 months. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. It was like seeing an old friend for the last time. The many admirers of the U-boat queuing up to say goodbye and thanks for the memories.
A bit of sadness in that it's the last of a run because they've given such excellent service over the years, and it means that apart from the Endeavour sets, there's no single-deck trains of any description used on the City Rail network.
The single-deck electric train started in 1958. Servicing the Sydney to Blue Mountains route before expanding to Gosford, then Newcastle. In its day it was the fastest on the line, but as it headed out of Newcastle station, everybody wanted the final trip to last forever. But even the driver knew this day had to come.
Oh, they're good to drive, good brakes and all that. It's just that they're that noisy and drafty now. Poor old things, I don't think they've been maintained much in the last 6 months.
It's to be replaced by a double-deck equivalent with all the mod cons, but for all the train spotters, it's the end of an era. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Gary Brace was given special leave from a weapons training exercise to collect his cheque for $404,098.90. The windfall, the result of a planned trip to Sydney at the weekend that fell through.
Due to other commitments, I didn't make it down there, so I just thought I'd drop in the club for a few hours and, well, lo and behold, shock horror.
Shock indeed. Originally, Gary thought he'd won $10,000 for picking 9 out of 10 numbers. It was only minutes later that staff informed him he'd won over $400,000 on a multi-bet ticket.
He looked at me as if to say, well, you know, like you're joking, aren't you? And I said, no, it's real. Come over here and I'll show it to you on the screen.
The win is the biggest ever on Keno in the Hunter Valley and could have been even bigger. Gary's ticket just one number short of a $2 million jackpot. However, the corporal isn't complaining.
I'm rather happy with it, and parents are very happy now because as of next week their house will be paid off, and I'll spend the rest of it wisely, hopefully.
Gary's first priority, a new car and motorbike. One thing he wasn't about to do with his newfound wealth, though, was invest in today's Melbourne Cup.
I don't bet on nags. They've got a habit of having a mind of their own, therefore you can't really trust them.
As for the winning numbers, Gary says they'll remain a personal military secret. Phil Hind, NBN News.
Police surrounded the house in Rathmine, south of Newcastle, just after 9 this morning. They were responding to a domestic violence call and arrived to find a 28-year-old man holding his son at knife point and threatening to burn down the house. The road was cordoned off as police negotiators tried to persuade the man to give himself up. The baby's mother waited with neighbours in the house next door throughout the ordeal while police continued their delicate negotiations. 3 hours later, the man walked out freely but refused to hand the toddler over to police. They threw the man to the ground, still gripping tightly to his son. After a struggle, police managed to rescue the baby before handcuffing the man.
Realising that we've had negotiators here for over 3 hours trying to talk him out, he was very agitated, and they're to be commended on their efforts of getting him to come out of the house.
The man was taken away for questioning by Toronto police. The young baby was unharmed during the siege. Vanessa Spark, NBN News. After escaping the terror of Pol Pot in Cambodia, Meng Lau hoped to find peace making bread in Swansea. But this wasn't to be the case.
They come in, follow me, and then they knock the door. I see them, and they push each other around at the back here.
Meng Lau has been the victim of racial abuse for the last 3 weeks. At 11:30 last night, a gang of youths struck again.
My heart beating, and then I just scared of myself, and I think to myself I wouldn't open the door.
The bandits smashed the back of Meng Lau's van before covering it with graffiti. They also covered the back door and alleyway with racially motivated slogans. The Lake Macquarie Council is trying to take the heat off the local Asian community by speaking out.
Pauline Hanson has to answer for all her racist comments.
Police are continuing their investigations into the attack. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
The winding section of the highway just south of Singleton doesn't look a particularly dangerous stretch. However, locals know to treat it with the utmost respect. Today, Singleton Mayor Councillor Neil McNamara and Council General Manager John Flannery travelled to Canberra to plead their case for an upgrade of the road direct to Transport Minister John Sharp. A government spokesperson says they went away from the meeting with a guarantee of $31 million over the next 4 years to widen and straighten the section of highway. The spokesperson stressed, however, the money wasn't allocated on the basis of improving road safety, claiming there had only been 2 fatalities on the Belford Bends in the past 5 years. He says the upgrade was approved solely on the basis of its economic value. Phil Hind, NBN News.
These children from Lakeside Special School were hoping to use the Wakefield Life Skills Centre by Christmas. Now the prospects look unlikely.
Our money's run out for materials and so on, and we're about 85% finished.
The modern complex was designed to replace a smaller facility run by the Newcastle Public Special School. It was burnt down by arsonists 3 years ago. Local businesses donated their time and materials to rebuild the centre, but funding for labour through the federal government's DEET program has dried up due to funding cutbacks.
We're looking for a bit more support, a bit more, I guess, labour if that can be donated, and anyone who can help us.
Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
Dane Proctor first took the plunge 2 years ago to help treat his disorder of the joints. But swimming has become more than just therapy. It's an important part of his life. The Hunter Christian School student trains 3 days a week as he reaches for the top in his sport.
It's a bit hard sometimes to keep up with the other kids. So I don't train with disabled kids, I train with able bodies.
But usually he's leaving others in his wake. Dane's most recent successes at the state championships.
I got 4 gold and 1 silver. I got silver in the 50 freestyle and gold in the 100 freestyle, 200 freestyle and 400 freestyle and 50 backstroke.
In 2 months, Dane will try to add to that tally at the Pacific School Games in Perth. But there'll be many more laps if he's to achieve his ultimate ambition.
I'd like to get to the 2000 Paralympics. Yeah, I reckon that'd be great.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News. When the receiver came into Rundles on Tuesday, the first people to back the company were its workers. Today, the Trades Hall Council joined the front line. In its firing line, Westpac.
I think people who have accounts at Westpac ought to firstly get in touch with their branch or the central office, and if they get no satisfaction, then they simply ought to transfer their accounts to another bank.
The bank had been offered $750,000 immediately, but Westpac wanted that and another $2 million within a fortnight, despite Rundles having more assets than debts. The receiver is now trying to find a buyer for the business, ending an 88-year family tradition at the clothing giant. The Trades Hall Council says Westpac should show the same loyalty Rundles has given to the community.
They're not interested in the regional economy. They're not interested in the national interest. It's bottom line, market-driven economics, without meeting any of their social obligations.
Westpac's stance is unknown, as the bank failed to return our calls. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. It's become the easiest way to predict who'll be the Hunters sporting stars of the future. Hockey player Michelle Andrews and softballer Natalie Ward were virtual unknowns when they picked up their first scholarship. They've since represented Australia at the Olympics, and today they received their fourth straight $1,000 cheque.
It's been a great opportunity for me, and it really helps, like with financially with amateur sport, you always seem to be reaching into your pocket to put out for something, whether it be levies or travelling expenses.
15 potential Olympians were given a helping hand. Hockey and basketball the only sports with multiple winners. This year's honour roll also includes 7 new recipients, among them 16-year-old boxer Jamie Kilroy. He's already made the Olympic 2000 boxing development squad and says today's cheque will help him to get around the country to fight for his future.
Do plenty of travelling. Nearly every weekend we travel, and it costs a fair amount of money.
A scholarship also rounded off a great 12 months for Newcastle Falcon Scott McGregor, who can add it to his Rookie of the Year award. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Yeah, I think that we can still be competitive with the top teams, but the time's come for us to stand up and be counted against teams like Canberra and Morwell. So hopefully by picking up 3 points this Friday night we can start a new trend.